From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Welcome back to the final episode of Dale Carter's America for 2024. I am Dale Carter. Kurt Wheeler is right over there. And boy, what a journey we have been on. You said we were almost to episode 200 on this podcast?
That's correct. I think this is I forget.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we're close.
Yeah. I mean, who knew when we started this thing right after Joe Biden got inaugurated that we would still be doing it, and it's still growing with two ways to consume the product. You can do audio only, or you can get the video as well and see all of the videos that we're playing and see our wonderful faces.
Yes, absolutely.
Who doesn't want to see that?
I mean, I combed my hair and everything. Come on, people.
And we're both wearing black.
Yeah, just like we planned it.
After the year that we've had, why are we wearing black?
I don't know.
Unless we ate a lot of food over the holidays, and black is particularly
it's rainy,
slimming.
you know, maybe it's the first Monday back after the holidays, you know, maybe we're feeling a little dark. Who knows?
Jam-packed episode. Phil Levota, who is a local Democrat politician here in Kansas City. His family's been in Democrat politics all the way back to when Harry Truman was president. Always fun to talk to him, and certainly want to catch up with him about the future of his party after what happened with the red wave and Donald Trump in 2024. So we'll get to that. The Daniel Penny effect in New York and beyond, it's already showing its head. Trump 47, what's that going to look like? And then something that made my head explode last week, and it started off just as a birthday breakfast for a dear friend. And we said we weren't going to talk politics, and yet somehow politics came up.
It always does.
It always does. So we'll get to all of that coming up. Meanwhile, tell the folks if they're new to the podcast or how they can help us share the message.
Well, if you're new, welcome. And thank you for listening. If you are not new, welcome back. You can check us out, the video podcast on YouTube or Rumble. Make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment. It all helps with getting us in front of more people, and we do appreciate it. If you want to check out the audio-only version, you can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Facebook as well and join in the conversation.
It's the end of the year, and that is a good time to check your insurance situation. And Bob Watson's been with us nearly since the beginning, big supporter of what we do on this podcast. And he'd like to show you how you can bundle your home and car insurance and save even more money. He's been a Blue Springs local State Farm agent for 50 years. The guy knows what he's doing. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs, but hey, he's licensed to both Missouri and Kansas. And if you're outside of the Missouri and Kansas area, find a State Farm agent you trust. It's the brand that you trust. Find the guy. In Kansas City, it's always been Bob Watson, my personal insurance agent. He can be your insurance agent with a phone call to 816-229-7878. And again, his office is at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. So we look back on the year that was, we look ahead to the year that will be, and that's kind of like the theme of this podcast. But Kurt, it feels like we accomplished something because we were talking about everything that Joe Biden was doing that was pissing us off over 4 years and just trying to urge people to see through to the issues that affected them and impact them. And we along with, the Joe Rogans of the world, I think the podcast generation really made a difference in this election.
I'd say congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're trying to say is that we here on Dale Carter's America elected Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States.
Did you get an invite to the inauguration? I didn't.
Yeah, I got an invite, but I'm busy that day, so I won't be able to make it.
Come on, Mark Alford. You're our favorite congressman, dear friend of the program here, and we didn't get an invitation to the inauguration. So we got that done. America got that done. And we're going to talk about what that looks like going forward. What do you think is going to happen in the next year? What are your predictions?
Well, I think that culturally speaking, there have been some significant changes over the past couple years. I think COVID 2020 was a real low point. Obviously, with COVID and the lockdowns and everything like that, and the race riots, things kind of felt bleak. And I think over the course of the last 4 years, and certainly with the election of Donald Trump again, and other things, we're starting to see a sea change where people are kind of fed up with a lot of stuff. The the cries of racism are pretty much over. I think the media is on its last breath. I think with RFK coming in and potentially eliminating the direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceutical companies, that may be the nail in the coffin for them. DEI programs are being canceled at major corporations. And I think, also we have a rejuvenation of faith in young people. That's a big thing too. People going back to church and having kids, and I'm seeing a lot of that just in my own circles. But I don't know. I don't think everything is solved. We solve a lot of problems. We have looming World War III and all that stuff. But I think culturally there are a lot of positive changes happening. So hopefully that momentum will carry through, and Trump will actually do a lot of what he promised to do.
Well, hopefully one of the things he's going to do is welcome the 3-time in a row Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs to the White House. I'd love to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
with the McDonald's hamburgers.
Oh, you know what? It's funny. They all criticize Trump for that, and the players would rather have that, right?
Yeah, that whole McDonald's saga was still my favorite Trump moment, I think, ever.
Well, we've got a lot to get to, and we will. But first, if a deer has run across your path and you hit it with your car and it's salvageable and you're in the Kansas City metro area, there's only one name you need to know, and it's Dale. And it's not me, Dale. It's Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. You can trust your collision repair to be done right with the experts at Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. They've been at it for 37 years, putting your car back together after you've dinged it up. And I know this from personal experience because I've wrecked several cars. My kids have wrecked several cars, and Dale's Body Shop put them all back together to showroom new. Dale's Body Shop, Blue Springs, taking care of customers and taking care of you. If you've got somebody in your circle of friends, maybe it's you, who is turning 65, the people you need to be talking to are Kirk Doris and Lori Hocker at Medicare Simplified KC. They're on the web at MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. You can reach them on the phone to get an appointment going. And if you can't go to them, they'll come to you. 816-701-6661. Because Medicare, while a lot of people look forward to 65 as the checkered flag, and now I don't have to work because I don't have to take my company's insurance, there are a lot of pitfalls to Medicare. It's not one size fits all. And Kirk and Lori, they spend every day navigating people to where they need to be, which plan, which coverage, what about the supplemental stuff. They explain it all to you in a way that's going to make sense and make your journey through Medicare much more simple, which is why it's Medicare Simplified, KC.com. Kirk Doris, Lori Hocker, 816-701-6661. Proud to have them here. Well, I knew this would happen, but I didn't know how quickly it would happen. So the Daniel Penny effect is what we're talking about here. Daniel Penny, the guy who saw danger on a subway, held down the guy who had threatened people with bodily harm and murder, and the guy was like hopped up on every drug you could imagine. And guess what? He died as a result, right, of everything that was in his system. I think that's what the coroner said, and a jury agreed. Daniel Penny was not convicted. You talk about the race relations there in New York. Those folks wanted to lynch the guy right there in Times Square. That didn't happen. So he got out of that deal. But what was going to happen next? Now think about this. The subways are dangerous places. You've been on the subway, right, in the city?
New York? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got a story about that, actually.
Yeah. So they're dangerous. And Kathy Hochul goes out, and she proclaims crime is down in the New York subways. As she's doing that, someone is stabbed to death, and a homeless woman burned alive by an illegal from Guatemala. Did anybody jump in and help this woman? Did they throw a coat on her? No, they did not. This guy was using his shirt to fan the flames so that she would, burn faster. All people did in that subway was get their phone out, put it on video, and record it. Nobody helped this woman. And I think that's the Daniel Penny effect. Because Daniel Penny, in my mind, I think in your mind, Kurt, did nothing wrong. He saw danger. He stepped in as he was trained, and he held the guy down. The guy died. Okay? So if you're looking at this and you're riding the subway in New York and something breaks out, in the back of your mind, I think, is, God, look what they did to Daniel Penny. All he tried to do was intervene and help people, women and children. Oh, I'm not doing that. Screw that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance you'll go to jail for a long time, and at the very least, your life will be upended and ruined. I mean, the guy, speaking of Daniel Penny, is he's no longer anonymous. He can't really go in public. Certainly not in New York. I mean, if I were him, if he hasn't already, I'd move as far away from New York as possible. You know, move to South Carolina or Missouri or Tennessee or something like that, where maybe it's a little bit more friendly. But yeah, it's a really difficult situation. That's a fact of many factors. The fact that these people, the criminals, are released. You know, the guy who did the burning on the subway was a Guatemalan illegal immigrant who had been released. He had been apprehended and arrested previously and then released. And yeah, my quick story on this is we were actually in New York, my wife and I, this past week during the holiday break. We went out to PA for Christmas, and we took the train up to New York for a couple days. And we didn't have a car, so we were talking about, like, well, how are we going to get around, you know, in the city? And it's like, well, I said, well, you know, we could take the subway as one of the many options. She's like, well, I don't want to take the subway. It's too dangerous. And I'm like, well, you know, I mean, it's not great, but like it's fine. You know, we'll be fine. Meanwhile, like this was happening at that exact moment, pretty much. So we get to the hotel. I open my phone, and like the first thing that I see is some woman was burned alive on the subway. I was like, well, I guess we're not doing that. So
yeah.
we spent like $200 on Ubers instead.
Well, you know, I was in New York once for CBS meetings way back when. This is probably 20 years ago. And a friend of mine, Ray Massey, who programmed another country station, and I didn't want to stay for the musical guest at the meetings because it was not a country thing. And I said to Ray, I wonder if the Yankees are in town. And they weren't. It's like, okay, well, what about the Mets? Well, the Mets were playing that night at Shea Stadium. And it's like, well, we're in Manhattan. We could jump on the subway. We could go do that. So we're in suits in this meeting, Kurt. Mm-hmm. And we go out to, you know, Queens. That's where it is, right? Shea Stadium, Flushing Meadow.
Yeah.
The old Shea Stadium.
Yeah, one of them is in the Bronx. One of them is in Queens.
Yeah, Yankees play in the Bronx.
Okay. Yeah.
So we go there. We're in suits. We go to the game. And then we get back on the subway, and it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night to go back to Manhattan. Here's two white guys in suits getting on the subway. And you should have seen the looks we got. It's like, are you?
Cha-ching!
Should you be here?
Yeah. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I wouldn't do it now. That is for sure. But what I would do is if I were a passenger on the subway and I saw women and children being threatened with murder by an illegal, I think I would step in and help. By the way, we're going to continue to call them illegals, because that's what's in the USC code. It says illegal immigrants. It doesn't say undocumented. The liberals really try and screw around with the language. They want you to say things a certain way. And have you noticed even Fox News now calls them undocumented?
I have noticed some ostensibly conservative or right-wing, so I don't really watch Fox, so I don't know what language they use, but I have certainly seen it being adopted. And it does happen. I mean, it's the slow roll. You know, the left plays the slow roll. They introduce the language, and it's the same thing with the pronouns and all that stuff. Yeah. You know, you introduce it, and then you just say it enough times, and then eventually people start saying it.
Well, I'm old school, and I'm not bending the knee, and I don't want you to bend the knee either. Manatee County, Florida, they do not bend the knee there at all. A couple of Mexican illegals broke into this guy's house. One of them got away. The guy who owns the house saw it on his internal security, right, on the camera, and he got out his gun and started shooting. And the sheriff of Manatee County says, this guy got killed, by the way. He says, if you attempt to rob our residence, be prepared to be shot.
Yep. Here he is. Let's see what he has to say.
I praise this husband for doing
volume, don't we?
Thought I was going deaf for a second.
I praise this husband for doing what he needed to do to protect his home and protect his family. And if you're going to be that brazen to come into my home, once again, you should expect that you're going to be shot. Last night at around 9 p.m., Sheriff's Office received a call of shots fired in the River
This whole
Club
clip is
area,
long, but that's the
off
highlight
of,
right there.
Okay.
Hickory.
Well, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And that's another example of, when we look at the United States of America, you look at places like Florida, where they're doing a good job. And then you look at California, where it's so far left, I'm surprised it hasn't fallen into the Pacific Ocean just yet. And you get an idea of what works and what doesn't work. And, that sheriff is backing up his local residents that if you break into the house, you're fair game. And that would happen in Missouri, too, by the way. If you broke into somebody's house in Missouri, you're fair game. I don't think that's the case in every state.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Greg Abbott, who is the fantastic governor of Texas, is now posting billboards in Mexico and Central America warning of tough medicine if you're caught illegally crossing into Texas. I mean, the Biden administration is gone. I mean, they're leaving on January 20th. They're the guys who invited you to come back in. And, Democrats don't like to be reminded of these things, but Joe Biden in a 2020 debate in front of all those Democrats said he wanted everybody to come in. Remember the wave that came in that was wearing Biden-Harris T-shirts? They were invited in. Well, now we need to close the border. Even Democrats, rational Democrats, will agree that it's time to close the border, and Greg Abbott is doing a great job.
We are launching a new campaign to deter illegal immigration into Texas. Yesterday, we began putting up billboards, dozens of billboards, in Central America and in Mexico. They inform potential illegal immigrants about the reality of what will happen to them if they try to enter Texas illegally. One says, stop. If you cross the border illegally into Texas, you will be jailed. The message is, do not risk a dangerous trip just to be arrested and deported.
You have pictures of the boards?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what those look like. This is why you want to see the video version of all this. And I understand some of them are like in Chinese and other languages.
Oh, really?
Because it's not just, folks from Central America and Mexico that are coming across the border. Basically, the garbage from around the world is trying to squeeze in through that southern border.
Yeah, look at that. So this one here, and this was posted by Greg Abbott's Twitter account, so I'm assuming these are, authentic, but that is Spanish. This one looks like Russian or Ukrainian. That one is Spanish again. And this one is Spanish again, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the message is out there, and I think it is clear that Americans are fed up. You said that in the open, that they're fed up on many levels. But it just depends on where you are, to what extent you're going to want to get involved. And New York's got a lot of problems. They have a decent mayor. I like their mayor, Eric Adams. Donald Trump likes him. Right? They're different parties, but they like each other because Adams is a former cop and he realizes things need to change. He's fighting against his own city council to remove the sanctuary city designation that they have in New York City. So I wish him continued success on turning New York around because it is one of the great cities on the planet. And the folks in California, I mean, you get the government that you vote for. You get the government that you deserve. And if you keep voting for these people like Gavin Newsom, it is never going to change in California.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Eric Adams goes, I don't know if I would be praising him like that. I mean, he was very pro, the migrant situation until it became politically inconvenient for him because of all the resources they were using. So he's trying to cover his ass. He's seeing which way the wind is blowing. He's seeing the incoming administration, and he's seeing all the money that it's costing his city. And he's like, oh, wait, I changed my mind. Well, it's too late. They're all there. And, now you got to do something about it. So,
well, you're never going to get Greg Abbott to run for mayor of New York City. So you get what you get.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's done other things. Is he the lesser of two evils, or more, as far as New York City politicians? Maybe, but he still sucks. So.
Well, I think New York's got a lot of problems and a steep hill to climb, and they've got essentially a moron who is the governor of that state who got there because the other guy, had to leave in disgrace.
And man, I mean, it's a great place to visit. Like I said, I was just there last week, and it was my wife's first time, and she loved it. We had a great time, but it's impossible. I can only imagine trying to live there. I mean, everything is so expensive.
Right.
And the traffic is terrible. I mean, that's just New York, but the cost of living is through the roof. There's migrants, to use their language, everywhere, and it's just it's a very difficult place to live, and I think more people are leaving now, unfortunately.
I love living here in the great middle of
Yes.
the country, the great Midwest, where we have things like Midwest GI Health and Dr. Mark Taramina, who did my colonoscopy. He'd love to do yours too. Are you 45 or older? 45 is the new 50. Get your colonoscopy. I'm telling you, what still sticks with me is that picture of a colonoscopy from a 41-year-old that Mark Taramina sent me, and we basically saved that guy's life. So if you've got issues in that area and you're not quite 45 yet, call Dr. Taramina. If you are 45, get that screening so that if you've got those polyps, we can get those sent off and get you in treatment. Chances are you're going to get a clean bill of health, but wouldn't you want to know? Don't you want to know? Even the prep with Dr. Taramina is better than it was the first time when I used another doctor. It really wasn't that bad. It wasn't that big a deal. And the prep is the thing that holds most people back. Find out, get the answers. Dr. Mark Taramina at Midwest GI Health and Wellness, on the phone at 816-836-2200, on the web at midwestgihealth.com.
Did we ever hear anything back on the polyp from the podcast listener?
I
From
didn't.
Dr.
I need
Mark?
to reach out to him and find out what's going on
Yeah,
with that.
Dr. Mark, if you're listening, let us know how it went.
Yeah, appreciate that. Then you get a new lease on life, and you're like, well, I got this lease. I'm paying rent. I'm not making any progress here. There's no equity in my apartment, so I want to get a starter house. Or I've got a starter house, and we've got more kids coming. We need a bigger house. Kids are going off to college. We need a smaller house. Maybe there's a piece of land somewhere that you bought that you want to build your dream home on. There's only one name in the Kansas City Metro that you need who can touch all of those bases, and it's Michael Schroer, real estate pro at Remax Heritage. You can get him on the phone at 816-783-5800. You got a piece of land, you got a house you need to sell. He can do that too. Really great guy. And again, he loves the podcast, loves being part of it, and we love Michael Schroer being part of it as well. And now we have our special guest with us. We're bringing him back. He is a local Democrat operative and a friend of this program, Phil Levota. All right, special guest Phil Levota is with us. And to be fair, I would have invited you on either way this had gone.
Oh, you sure?
I'm positive.
Are you here to gloat over me?
Not at all.
My friend?
No, not at all. Now, Kurt might want to, but I certainly won't do that. But we are glad to have you here. Happy holidays.
To you also.
Yeah. And we start really with kind of a sad note, and that is the passing of Jimmy Carter. Obviously, there's news there. You and I are close to the same age, which means we didn't have the opportunity to vote in that election. But you probably have some memories of President Carter.
I do. My father was in politics, city councilman in Independence, and I remember the peanut farmer coming of age and when he was running. And it was one of those stories that coming from nowhere. Today's day, you better be a multi-billionaire to run for president, and he came from the nothingness of a peanut farmer. And I think the guy showed a lot of dignity. He had a one-term presidency. Ronald Reagan came in and took advantage of some of his missteps. But after that is kind of where he really shined, when he kept giving back to the community and with building homes and that stuff. He showed a lot of dignity. The guy was a great guy.
I have said, on our podcast page that he wrote the book on how to conduct yourself as a post-president.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was always there to help the other presidents, advise too, but he also gave back till his dying days. He gave back to the community. It's amazing.
Yeah. It was interesting, when he got elected in 1976, I think the country was coming out of the Richard Nixon era, and they wanted a Boy Scout.
They sure did. They wanted no scandal, no nothing. Here's this guy from Georgia, just fresh off the farm. He's got no problems. Let's start fresh with him.
I'll tell you a funny story. At least I think it's funny. When I was in high school, last name Carter, right? Mm-hmm. Same time Jimmy Carter is president. And I went to a high school that was fed by a lot of different grade schools, and I had gone to 3 of them. So I figured I knew a lot of the people in my freshman class. So, being the egotistical maniac that I am, I ran for class president. And we did posters, right? And somebody drew like the peanut with the big teeth on it. Remember the peanut, vote for Carter, blah, blah, blah. But he was so hideously unpopular that I lost in a landslide.
And that was because of him. His coattails brought you down.
Exactly. No coattails there whatsoever. So Jimmy Carter passing away at 100 years old, and our thoughts and prayers to the Carter family down in Georgia. But the reason that we have you here, obviously, is the 2024 election did not go your way. It went Donald Trump's way. And I guess it's kind of an overview from your perspective, what happened?
Red wave. Red wave, red wave. So many different things happened. I guess I'd start off by telling you the Democratic Party is rudderless here in Missouri and nationwide. I'm not sure where we go from here, but we got to go somewhere. It's interesting looking back, perspective of what happened. Several things, complicated things. Donald Trump gets voters out. Simply put, they show up. 2020, he had 74 million votes cast for him. Biden got 81 million, the most any president ever got, but Trump had 74 million. This time he increased that, and he got 77 million. So Trump voters vote, and then he peeled off some other people. Some of those past Biden voters, they didn't like the economy. They didn't like things was going on, and they went Trump's way, and he drives the vote. That was the biggest force going on there. And also, Kamala Harris did not drive voters. She wasn't enthusiastic. She didn't have people in the streets walking door to door for her. Joe Biden was Sleepy Joe, and he got out too late. We didn't have a chance to get a lot of different personalities talking to figure out who our candidate was. She was thrust upon us, and that's what Democrats went behind. I thought she would do better, and she didn't. And the red wave and Donald Trump train took over.
Yeah. I go back to when Biden was elected and his inaugural address, which was about the time we started this podcast. So the podcast is coming up on 4 years. And, I went into that first podcast not having voted for Joe Biden because I'm a conservative and that's my track. But I said, hey, I want the country to do well. Much like John Fetterman said about Donald Trump. I thought that was pretty classy. I want the country to do well, but using my platform on the podcast, when I disagree with Joe Biden, I'm going to talk about it. And I'll do the same thing for Donald Trump. But we went through 4 years where, we disagreed vehemently with the things that Joe Biden was doing. But what he said in that first speech was, I'm going to be a transition candidate, right? I'm going to be a transition president. Give me a chance here. I'm going to basically set the stage right and then get out of the way. He liked it, right? That's what happens. No president, I think, wants to willingly give all that up. And I think he really hurt the Democrat Party.
Well, I would agree to that, but I would disagree on why he ran. I think he told everyone would listen that he didn't want to run. And he was only running because Donald Trump was running. And he thought, I beat Donald Trump. I can beat him again. And where is someone else that can run? Who else can beat Donald Trump? And I think if someone would have stepped up and said, I'm the person, it would have been a different thing. I think Joe Biden was wrong in his evaluation that he might have been able to beat Donald Trump, but he had. So I really believe that he was honest in saying, I'm a transitional president. I want to run. Somebody else come behind me. And then come time to run, it's like, where is this person? Who's stepping up? And I was not a Kamala Harris fan when she was vice president. I became one when she became our candidate. But I think that's why he ran again.
Mm-hmm. I think we've talked about this, the spectrum out there. I think 80% of the country lives here, right? And then you've got the far right and you've got the far left over here. James Carville said that the Democratic Party has been pulled so far to the left that now it's left coast and east coast, and it's a bunch of far left liberals basically sitting around drinking their coffee with their pinky extended, talking about how rotten the country is. Would you agree that that's where the party is right now?
I would agree that Donald Trump made a very good explanation of that and drove that home with people. I would also tell you that I'm a Missouri Democrat.
Right.
I'm a Harry Truman Democrat. And I have a lot more in common as a moderate Democrat with my Republican friends on most issues than I do with California and New York Democrats. And that's hard being a Democrat in here because of that. But yeah, I think that we do have, the party has been driven by too far left progressives, and most of the country is not that, and that hurts. That hurts a lot.
So, where do you go from here?
I think, well, first of all, we get to sit back and watch because Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the presidential, the White House. So we should get everything the Republicans want done. And unfortunately, whether Democrats or Republicans, it doesn't happen that way. There's too much gridlock. And even in parties, when the speaker has such a minority to deal with, if everybody would get on board in the Republican Party, boy, they could do some things, but they're going to be fighting within themselves, just like Democrats do too.
Sure.
But as Democrats, we get to sit back and watch, because in 2 years at midterms, some things aren't going to get done that the Republicans want.
Happens every time.
Yeah, and so people are going to flip. So I guess my first thing would say we're going to sit back and watch as Democrats.
So when you think about that, and when you see that the Republicans are coming in all three, the House, the Senate, the White House, what are the things that they're going to try and get done that you disagree with? What are the things? Because I knew going in, when Joe Biden said he was going to stop the Keystone XL pipeline, when he was going to open the border, essentially, get out of the Iran nuclear deal, get out of the Paris, or get back into the Iran nuclear deal, get back into the Paris Accord. I mean, I disagreed with all of those things. So what's coming up that you disagree with?
Well, I'll tell you what. The first thing I'm excited about is that the border issue. The border issue is not a Republican or Democratic issue. We have had problems with that border forever. And I don't know and can't tell you that Joe Biden opened the borders. He's definitely a different policy than Donald Trump does. We now have a time with the Republican Party in charge to really make a difference at that border. I think if they're really going to do this mass deportation, I think it can be a good issue. However, how they do it, I'm concerned about every brown, black person getting stopped and let me see your papers, if we're mass deporting. So the way they do that concerns me.
Okay.
The policy of doing it, not, but the way they put it into action.
All right, that's fair. So who are the rising stars in your party? Where's the next wave of leadership going to come from?
I don't see them. Here's what I predict. I predict we're going to have a national disaster somewhere, and someone's going to rise to the occasion, whether it's a state senator from Michigan, or whether it's a governor from somewhere. Someone's going to rise to the occasion, and in the world we live in, this 24-hour news cycle and internet, that person's going to get popularity, and that person's going to rise to be, okay, look at this person. Maybe we start getting around this person, he or she, for the next president. But right now, the bench is what it was before. It's Gavin Newsom and that, and I don't know if those retreads are going to work. They probably shouldn't. We've just seen from the election cycle, they don't want old hat. They want new blood. So I can't tell you who the next Democratic candidate be, because I don't think we know yet.
Yeah, and it may be somebody emerging like a Bill Clinton did in 1992 who nobody heard of.
Exactly. Or an Obama, this crazy kid with the big ears from Illinois. No one knew.
The Obama thing, I think, was more about, hey, isn't it cool? We got the first black president and all that. Clinton came out of the middle of the country as a governor who had actually run something, and I just look at your bench, and I don't see that.
No. Well, we used to be able to look even at Missouri. We had some good Democratic statewide candidates as a bench, and we have nothing here in Missouri to look forward to either. So I don't know. That's up for grabs.
All right. Anything else on your mind here from the national political?
I think that I've talked to millions of city council people and county legislators that are all running for president, because everybody in politics thinks they're running for president. So I like to watch that. But as far as nationwide, I think I'm happy that we are going to have a peaceful transfer of power. That's important. We got to remember that. We're going to have all the presidents there when Donald Trump is inaugurated, and that's what America's about. We're going to get past what happened before and arguments about elections, and I'm hoping the new administration, I'm hoping the old administration helps the new administration moving forward, and it's a peaceful transition of power. And I'm sitting here as an American wishing the Trump administration the best, and let's get some of these policies that you campaign on for the American people. Let's get it done. Let's make America great again. You promised it. I'm ready to watch it.
Okay. Well, I mean, and I said I'd have you on either way that it went. And as we move forward and as we watch these things, I'm going to invite you back because you bring a perspective that I don't have.
You bet. Love sharing all my ideas and our policy. And I think moving forward, I guess is my final thing, this is what we got to do as Americans. We have to do that. And it's so divisive. After an election, I always hope this is where we come together. This is where people like you and I can sit down and have a different opinion and get to the point where we're still Americans and still can be respectful of each other.
I love this country because of that, and it doesn't go all one party. We see that time and time again. The interesting thing in our history is going back to the Depression and World War II, where Franklin Roosevelt held the White House as long as he did, and Democrats held the House for 50 years. I don't think we're in that environment anymore. Now we're in the prove to me what you're going to do for me, and if you don't, we're going to kick you out.
And the an interesting part of that too, in Missouri, for example, I saw a lot of Republican voters. They voted for their governor, Mike Keogh, but also they were voting for abortion rights, which were historically a Democratic issue. So people aren't just dyed in the wool one way, though. They will listen to issues. So people, there's some open minds, I hope.
Well, Kurt and I talked about that, the fact that Donald Trump won Missouri, and so did the abortion issue. So, to be continued, and I do hope that you'll come back, and I hope you have a Happy New Year.
You bet. Happy New Year, you do too.
You bet. So again, we thank Phil Levota for being here. And, Phil's not crazy about the fact that there will be a Trump 47, although, as he said, he's going to watch and see what happens. Kurt, much like we did when we started this podcast, you remember how we started it. We came out of Joe Biden's inaugural address and we said, okay, we're fans of this country. Let's see what he's going to do. And then probably from episode 2 on, we disagreed with everything that he did.
Yeah.
Did he do anything we agreed with? He
sure
stocked ice cream at the White House. We like ice cream. Yeah.
Donald Trump has his Diet Coke button, and Joe Biden has his Choco Chip ice cream button.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff we could find, but mostly no. But I do appreciate Phil's, open-mindedness and his desire for the country to succeed and the president to succeed. That is rare, on the left these days. They seem to be pretty hateful people for the most part. So it's good to see that.
Well, Fetterman said some nice things too.
Yeah. Fetterman's been coming around for sure.
But they're going to do what we did. They're going to watch what happens, and as things roll out that they disagree with, they're going to be loud about it, because that's what America is all about. When you disagree with what's going on, you're loud about it. And you've got some keyboard warriors that jump on our Facebook page who think that we're going to lick Donald Trump's boot for the next 4 years, and that's not the case. Where I disagree with him, I'm going to say I disagree. And just like I did with Joe Biden, I don't think I'm ever going to disagree with Donald Trump to the point where I'm not going to support our nominee in 2028, who will not be Donald Trump. But there are going to be some things that we disagree with moving forward. But I wanted to step back for a second and talk about why we voted for Donald Trump, because I think too often this gets into a red jersey, blue jersey, my team versus your team, and it's like a Chiefs-Raiders game, and we're rooting for our team. I've always been one who likes to root for issues. And, from the second that Joe Biden took the oath of office, when he started doing things like making us energy dependent, where we were energy independent, where he made our country less safe by allowing illegals to come in, those are probably the top 2 reasons that I voted for Donald Trump strongly and encouraged other people to vote for Donald Trump strongly. And then when you look at foreign relations and you look at the fact that, he got us right back into the Paris Accord, which is ridiculous for the state of the world and would put us at an economic disadvantage that we would never claw out of. Yet it's what they still seem to say in California, that we need to be doing that. And we'll get to that a little bit later in this podcast. We got back in bed with the Iranians, with the Iran nuclear deal that Trump got us out of. And we saw the fallout from that. We saw the Iranians take their newfound ill-gotten gains, and, Biden assured us that it was only going to be used for humanitarian efforts, even though the Iranians told us it's our money, we'll use it however we want. They funneled it to Hamas and Hezbollah, and we're on the precipice of World War III as a result of that. The awful withdrawal from Afghanistan. I mean, the litany of things that Joe Biden did wrong that I think Donald Trump is going to fix, I think that's where we start.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it he said is going to be day one. And before, I know he's already been talking to world leaders. He's already talked to Zelensky. He's talked to other world leaders. I think the Ukraine-Russia thing hopefully gets a quick resolution, because that has the potential to devolve into chaos pretty rapidly if something's not done about it. Same thing with Israel and Hamas.
Well, it's almost like he's running the country already. I mean, he's holding court at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. There's lots of people visiting Mar-a-Lago.
Who has the nuclear codes right now?
And it's not for tea. Let's just put it that way.
Who has the nuclear codes right now? That worries me. It's funny because the Democrats now, who said that Donald Trump was going to walk in and be a dictator, what they're saying now is that Elon Musk is going to run the country. not Donald Trump. So you got to get your story straight here. And, one of the other things that we know that he's going to do is this Doge thing that he set up with Elon Musk and Vivek. And I know you have some strong feelings about that, and we're going to get into that in a later episode of the podcast. I mean, what you told me that you want to talk about that we may disagree on, I think deserves a full segment.
I agree.
On this podcast. But just a 30,000-foot overview, I kind of like the idea that they're going to take a hard look at everything we're doing and see if we can't turn this ship around.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the idea is good, and Elon has already proven that he can make budget cuts. He did so at X, Twitter, when he took over. I think he cut like 80% of the staff there or something. I mean, you had these people going on TikTok talking about my day as a Twitter executive, and they're like, playing pickleball and, getting lattes and taking a siesta halfway through the day and all this stuff. So obviously that's not sustainable. I think that he will be very good on that stuff. I think Vivek will have a very practical angle on it. And then the issue that we're going to flesh out later is not necessarily related to Doge. It's just that happens to be because Elon and Vivek have been talking about it, which is legal immigration as relating to the tech industry and H-1B visas and that sort of thing. But we'll just tease it for now.
Well, Donald Trump said something that concerned me. He wants to eliminate the debt ceiling. Because he says we come down to these things and it's like a gun to somebody's head that if you don't raise the debt ceiling, then the government is going to default. And we've never had that happen. We don't want to have that happen. And what happens is it's the Potomac two-step, because the previous Congress has run up all these bills with the help of the president, and then the new Congress comes in and it's like, well, we got to pay the bills. Okay, we've paid the bills. Now we got to bump up the deal, and then they do it again, and they just keep doing it, and it's just like it's a downward spiral that does not end well. 36 trillion is where we are on the debt right now, and I'm looking at this Doge thing. I mean, what they promised, Kurt, is that they could take 2 trillion off the top.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I'll be happy if I see that. I'm not overly optimistic I'm going to see that. But here's a first test. John Kennedy, our favorite senator in the Senate out of Louisiana, he has proposed the No Propaganda Act. Basically, it defunds the Corporation for Public Broadcasting because they have become like a fully funded from the government MSNBC. We've already got MSNBC. We don't need one that's funded by us. So I think that's going to be a real test. Can they get anything done there? Or will there be squealing? And it's like, just like any other government program, you can't turn it back.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's been proposed many times. I think the same thing with NPR. I wonder if NPR.
Well, that's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, is that NPR?
It's PBS, it's NPR. Yeah, because they're the same company. Essentially, you've got radio and television.
Right.
So we don't need it. Maybe we did need it at a point in time, but information is like a shotgun now. It's coming from everywhere. It's coming from podcasts like ours, multiple cable channels, 24-hour news channels. You don't need this anymore.
Yeah, and they lie. I mean, they carry water for the left. They carry water for the deep state. So that alone should be reason enough to get rid of them.
If they were to the right of Fox News, I would also be on the same page here of let's get rid of it, because I'm not for the government doing anything that the private sector does better. And I would say that's about 90% of what our federal government is doing right now.
Yeah.
Private sector is a lot better. Get government out of the way, and we'll see. I mean, we've got, as Phil Levota said, you've got the ball now. Red wave. You got the presidency, you got the House, and you got the Senate. Let's see what you do. And then we've got a midterm coming up where Americans, the beauty of this country is every 2 years there's an election, and the country takes a look at what's going on and either says, yeah, I want more of that, or I'm not real happy. And the first place they get you is the House of Representatives, and sometimes the Senate. But the House of Representatives for sure, where all of the seats are up every 2 years. It's definitely a barometer of what's to come. So in 2 years, we're going to see if they make any progress here, and I hope they do.
Yep. So do I. So do I. We'll see.
So the Democrats are already on Trump because he says, well, I can't really lower prices. He said he was going to lower prices. Now he says that's kind of a difficult thing to do. He's out there saying Canada's going to be our 51st state. Does anybody believe that?
I want to believe it so badly. But honestly,
it's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. But here's the thing. In a perfect world, would Canada being a 51st state be awesome? Yeah, it would be awesome. To conquer Canada. The land is beautiful. There's lots of natural resources that we can take advantage of. But, our country's not in great shape. We have serious cultural problems. We have a deep state that is corrupt. We're sending all of our money overseas. We're not having enough kids. We're doing all of these things wrong here. And I don't think we really need to bring in all the problems of Canada, the immigration problems that they're having and other things, to complicate our own problems. So,
well, let me just tell you what I think the greatest accomplishment that Donald Trump can give us early on in his administration, and that's to get us back to energy independence, because everything sprouts from that. Energy is baked into everything that we do. And if we get gas prices back down, that affects everything. It affects the food that you eat all the way down to the farmers, right? And all the things that they do. So if we get energy back to a rational form, right, to where we are energy independent again, and we have an all-in energy policy and not some left-wing lunatics out there saying, if you don't have a plug-in car, you're killing the planet. We'll get to that when we talk a little bit later on here. But when we get to a sane energy policy where we're exploring everything and using what we have at our disposal now, I think that ripples through the economy, and I think that is the greatest thing he can do, that and the border.
Yep, I agree. I mean, those are two things. And, what we kind of already talked about, but reversing some of these executive orders and reversing some of the stuff that has been done on the world stage. There's a lot that Trump can do immediately. Even stuff on the border, with enforcement, that I think he can change very rapidly. And then hopefully we'll see the trickle-down effects of that over the course of the 4 years. And then just changing the culture, which we've already seen. We've already seen a rejection of a lot of these ideas that have led us to this point. So I think he has the pulpit of the presidency and the power and the bullhorn to really continue that trend. I'd like to see that as well.
Well, we're looking forward to that. And I think probably the way the playoff schedule is going to go, Kurt, I won't be here on January 20th. So we'll probably end up recording our the podcast after the inauguration. So we'll have clips from the inaugural speech and all that. And it'll be a great day for America.
Is that a Monday?
That is a Monday.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's also Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, there you go.
On January 20th. And I think it's probably a holiday around here.
I have a dream that one day.
So it's a holiday, so you probably won't be here anyway. So we'll have to record on the 21st. So that's
Fantastic.
Just something to put in the future file there. Royal Roofing and Solar, Austin Watterson's company, they've been with us since nearly the beginning of this podcast. They did the roof on my house. They'd love to do the roof on your house. We're about to go through some serious winter weather in Kansas City. And when all that melts away, you're going to find out where the leaks are in your roof. Hopefully not, but if they are, get my guys from Royal Roofing and Solar out there. Mike Dale is their solar expert. He won't let you put a solar system in your house if it doesn't make sense. There are a lot of folks out there who'll say, oh, yeah, solar works in every case. And, yeah, you don't need the biggest system because of this or that. He's going to take a look at your house. Which way is it pointed? And does it make sense for you? And, boy, if it does, you're going to come out smelling like a rose with your Evergy bill, because you're going to find yourself with a very low Evergy bill or no Evergy bill. Get the questions answered and find out about your roof and the state of it. And if you need a new one, they'll be happy to do it for you. 816-540-7057. That is Royal Roofing and Solar. Celebrations happen every day at Funhouse Pizza. Funhouse Pizza, 50 Highway in Lee Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs. Whether it's a birthday party, maybe you had the relatives together for Christmas or New Year's, something like that. You got your ball team and their team meeting. No better place to have any of that stuff happen than Funhouse Pizza. Jim Dingman's company there, they've got excellent pizza. That's where it starts. Very cold drinks, fun atmosphere. Even if you're just going for lunch, Hit Funhouse Pizza, 50 Highway, Lee's Summit, 7 Highway in Blue Springs, the official pizza of Dale Carter's America. We could brand it that way, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Joey B is leaving on January 20th, if he hasn't left already. I mean, come on. Is he really running the country? Does anybody believe he's running the country?
Come on, man.
Do you believe he's running the country?
No.
Yeah. He's pardoning a lot of people on the way out. Bunch of people on death row. I think only 3 on the federal death row are still on death row. He got everybody else off. How would you like to be one of those 3 that Biden didn't pardon?
It's probably all white guys.
What do you mean? He pardoned everybody. Where's mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something, I'm trying to find the graph just right now, but there was something like 8,000 total pardons or something like that.
He's doing it a lot. All presidents do, and they've got the power of the pardon, and it's in the Constitution, so he's going to do it. Trump did it.
There you can see the chart right there. He's like over twice the amount of the next closest.
Who's next closest?
According to this, it's Roosevelt.
Oh, wow. That is a lot of
That's not the
pardons.
graph that I originally saw, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's accurate. It's just a Twitter search, so maybe not. But
So Biden, in perhaps a cogent moment, I don't know whether it was a cogent moment. I don't even know if he did the interview or not. But the Washington Post is coming with highlights from Joe Biden's regrets as he leaves the White House. And I see the note here that we don't have a WAPO subscription. We don't want a WAPO subscription, but you can find it other places. Other places are quoting it. And his biggest regret, apparently, is appointing Merrick Garland as Attorney General. Now, this is what happens when you come into office and you're like, I'm going to undo everything that they did. That's like the argument of a third grader. And all those executive orders that he passed that undid everything that Donald Trump did. If Donald Trump said the sun came up in the east and he put an executive order out to that effect, he would have reversed it and said the sun comes up in the west. That's exactly what his administration's all about. So Obama wanted to appoint Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. And Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate said, you know what, in an election year going back 100 years, if the parties are different, we wait and we let the people decide who the president's going to be, and then we let them appoint the Supreme Court justice. And that's why Merrick Garland is not on the Supreme Court. So Biden comes in and he says, oh, well, I'm going to make him Attorney General. How'd that work out? He says that Garland was too slow to go after Trump for January 6th, and he claims he was too vigorous prosecuting Hunter, which necessitated a pardon that Biden said he wouldn't do. So, man, if you're Merrick Garland reading that, it's like, get a dog in D.C. if you want a friend.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a business for, well, it is a business for making friends because that's how they have their influence. But
he also says that looking back on it, he probably shouldn't have gotten out of the race, that he's the only guy who could have beaten Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it too. You know, we showed all the pictures of Biden and Trump looking all happy together, and Jill Biden giving Kamala the cold shoulder. You know, is there something there? Maybe he's a little salty about it still. Who knows? He's
not quite criticizing Kamala Harris. It was interesting to hear Phil Levota say that he wasn't really a Kamala fan, and then she ran for president and he became one.
Yeah, just like that.
Just like that. I don't know about that. Yeah. I think Biden might have lost worse than she did, and she lost pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been bad too, but it's just vindication for those of us that said that Trump was the guy, that it wasn't Ron DeSantis, it wasn't Vivek, it wasn't any of these other people. Trump was the guy. He had the best shot of winning, and that clearly was the case.
Well, and he's going to be president only for 4 years, though, because he's only got, if he were like an NCAA player, we would say he's only got 4 more years of eligibility. So it will be somebody else in 2028, and it will be interesting to see who emerges, because I think the Republican bench is stocked.
Yeah.
And the Democrats, not so much.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at it now, because the race for 2028 is going to start on January 20th. So who do you think?
Oh,
JD
I don't
Vance
know.
probably has the inside track, right?
Too early to speculate. I mean, yeah, JD DeSantis, I think, is probably going to be past his prime. Could be J.D. Vance. Could be somebody else from the private sector.
Past his prime? Are you kidding me? We're going to inaugurate Donald Trump, and the current president's 82 years old.
No, I just mean that I think DeSantis had his moment. I think his moment has come and gone. I could be wrong, but you've got the people that ran in 2024. I mean, you have Vivek, you have Nikki Haley. All these types, maybe even somebody like Elon or Tucker Carlson, who knows? It's way too far out to say.
And we have a lot of, Republican governors out there. We talked about that with Phil Levota when Bill Clinton emerged in 1992. Nobody really knew who he was. He was governor of Arkansas. Well, now the governor of Arkansas is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's doing a hell of a job there. You got a great governor just north of us in Iowa. So we'll see if any of these people emerge. But you're right, it's way too early. But it's politics. We're always speculating.
Yeah.
Always speculating.
We got to get out in front of everybody else. We have to have the first take 4 years before the election.
All right. So, again, we thank Bob Watson, our State Farm agent, my State Farm agent, commercial insurance, auto, home, and life. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. Blue Springs State Farm agent for 50 years. The guy knows what he's doing, and he can save you money. And on top of that, when you need him, he's going to be there. His staff is there. They'll take the phone call, and they'll walk you through it. They've been part of my family for nearly 30 years, and they're ready to be part of your family, too. Bundle your home and car insurance. You'll save even more. State Farm is the brand you know. Bob Watson is the guy who will get it done for you. Licensed in Missouri and Kansas. And again, his phone number to get a quote is 816-229-7878. I have titled the last segment, which we call the kicker, Breakfast with a Liberal. Mary McKenna is one of my dear friends. We did the morning show at KF together for a long time. And then, what happens in our business, which happened last Friday. Sometimes we get personnel cuts, and Mary was a victim of that back in 2011, but we've remained dear friends. And we were going to have breakfast for her birthday. She had her birthday last week. And I said, let's have breakfast, but let's don't talk politics, because she's very liberal. When we worked together, and I was there to kind of be an influence in her life, she was closer to the center. Her husband is far left-wing liberal. He'd be at home in Gavin Newsom's California. So we made it almost all the way through breakfast, Kurt. And then I don't know how it came up, but politics came up. And she said, well, who I think ought to run for the Democrats next time is Pete Buttigieg. I think he's brilliant.
Great.
I gave you a meaty fastball there, and I tried to explain to her, no, I mean, based on what? He was transportation secretary after being mayor of South Bend, Indiana, which is about the size of Independence, Missouri. So is anybody going to
really? Is it really that small?
It's like 100,000 people.
Wow.
So is anybody going to pluck the mayor of Independence, Missouri, out of obscurity to be the next transportation secretary?
Nah, maybe if he's gay and checks off the right boxes.
Well,
then,
and you may remember, these cabinet positions are temporary jobs, right? Right. What did he do? He and his partner were going to adopt a child. He took like 12 weeks of paternity leave in the middle of a temporary job. He was MIA when the train derailed in Ohio. Any transportation issue, he was late to get there. Based on what? And I said all this to Mary. You know what she says to me? You won't vote for him because he's gay. I could care less. Is that why you would vote against him?
I mean,
you just cocked your head like that.
I didn't say anything.
I know you just cocked your head. It's like, I don't know. I mean,
but I mean, I think why people like him, it's obviously because of the DEI. He checks off the box. But more than that, it's they see him on TV, they see him on CNN. He talks well. He gives good speeches. He says the right things. He goes on all the talk shows, and that's it. It's entertainment to these people. It's like a soap opera. And
okay.
He's an attractive, character that they like in the soap opera, so they want to vote for him.
So she says, well, if not Mayor Pete, Gavin Newsom's my guy. And I'm like, my head at this point, Kurt, is about ready to explode. And you may know this about me, but when I get pissed, my face turns like bright red.
Right. I have
can't
noticed that.
I can't control it.
Yeah.
It just happens.
It may have happened on this show once or twice.
Once or twice. It's a physiological thing. So she's like, Gavin Newsom. I'm like, oh, Mary, my God. You can't even afford to live in California. Of course, she got me back with that, well, you fired me, so I can't afford to live in California.
Okay,
touche on that. But I will take that debate against any Republican. If he wants to get the nomination, wouldn't you take that debate? California versus Red America?
I don't know. I mean, I think Buttigieg is a joke. I don't think he's going anywhere. Gavin Newsom is a different story. The guy genuinely has political talent. Do I agree with what he's done in California? No. But he's a great speaker. He's a good debater. He had that debate with DeSantis.
DeSantis wiped his ass.
Kind of. I mean, but Gavin Newsom has political talent. I mean, you feel that way because you agree with DeSantis and I agree with DeSantis. So it's like, yeah, I mean, are you going to look at the record of Florida or are you going to look at the record of California? But
easy decision.
Gavin Newsom is an expert manipulator of language. He's a good-looking guy. You know, I mean, I think he's a real threat.
Well, let me share this with you. This comes from our news here. The Environmental Protection Agency giving California the green light in ending sales of new gasoline-powered vehicles in the state by 2035. No gasoline-powered vehicles in the state by 2035 will be sold. Gavin Newsom applauding the decision as the EPA approved 2 of 8 waivers requested by the state to enforce climate regulations. Newsom said the decision will bring residents closer to driving affordable electric or hybrid vehicles and improve public health by slashing harmful air pollution. So the dictator of California has dictated that by 2035, you will not be able to buy a gas-powered vehicle in California.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And that's, I mean, you can say he's got talent and all that, and he's slick and he looks good and all that. But when he opens his mouth, how does he defend this in the greater Republic of the United States? How does he defend this?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him. But I mean, I'm saying, I'm not saying obviously I agree with him. I'm not saying that he's going to be the next president. I'm just saying that he's a legitimate talent. He's a legitimate political talent, regardless of how crappy his record is. He knows how to spin it. He knows how to talk. He knows how to put on a good face, and that's not to be taken lightly because it is. We are talking about entertainment. We are talking about uninformed and or low IQ and or emotionally driven people that will vote based on these things. I mean, we saw it with Kamala Harris. We saw it with Joe Biden.
Well, I'll point out to you that Donald Trump just won,
right.
And the popular vote
right.
went the Republicans' way.
Yep.
So some people are paying attention. And, I wish they would sell this thing a little better than they sell it, because they sell it as, if you don't drive this plug-in car, you're killing the planet. I was having lunch before the Chiefs game with my dear friend Bill Althouse, who is the sports editor for the Examiner newspaper. And he told me, he said, I bought a hybrid car. He said, not the plug-in kind. And I said, I didn't realize there was something other than the plug-in kind. He said, no, I bought a hybrid car where I put gas in it, and when I drive it, by driving it, it recharges itself.
Right.
Had you heard about those?
Yeah.
That's
how it started. That's how the first hybrids were. The combustion engine charges the batteries for the.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And why don't they sell it that way? Because I said, well, how often do you put gas in it? He goes, oh, maybe once a month. Mm-hmm. I mean, I buy that. I get that, and I would do that. But, when you bash me over the head and say that I'm a knuckle dragger because I won't buy a plug-in car because I understand that when I plug it in, I'm plugging it into a coal-fired grid that can't sustain itself on hot days. Think about that for a second. Why don't you sell it in a way that I might get it? Sell me on the light bulbs. Remember when they did the whole light bulbs thing, mm-hmm. right? I mean, sell me on the fact that I'm not going to have to change light bulbs for 7 years.
Right.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, they've got their place. I mean, the hybrids have their place. Even the electric cars have their place. If it suits your lifestyle and what you want to do, then by all means go for it. But 2035, I mean, that's 10 years from now. So
it goes fast.
10 years, 2015 was 10 years ago. Think about it that way. So, That's a pretty tall task, I think.
And the automakers are already dialing back what they're doing in that front. So Gavin may be on the wrong side of history with that. We'll see. And the debates will continue. But now, looking forward, we've got at least 2 years of Republican dominance in Washington, D.C. And like Phil Levota said, he's going to sit back and watch, and so are we. We'll continue to comment, and we've got more episodes coming in the new year. So from Kurt and me, a Happy New Year. Let's bring on the Republican administration on January 20th. And until next week, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.